The issue that we are discussing is crime is about vice, not a lack of opportunities. Well, the individual who suggested this is with me. That is former president of the Arima Business Association, Mr. Reval Chattergoon. Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, Ketan. Good morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me this morning.
Well, thank you for joining me, sir. Let's start off. You're saying that there are too many opportunities for young people in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as adults, for them to turn to a life of crime. Are you certain that Trinidad and Tobago there exist opportunities that people are just refusing to see such opportunities?
Well, you know, the history of Trinidad and the world have always viewed a crime as a lack of opportunity. Somebody is trying to feed their family and they have no other choice than to go and commit a crime. But I ask you a general question. Show me a hungry or a starving or a poor criminal. These criminal elements, we have to call it as it is, yes? They're young persons that most of them are actually under the age of 19. We're seeing that some of them are as young as 14 and 15. Can you tell me that is poverty? Or is it that waywardness? Or is it that the schooling is not sufficient? Is it that Ministry of Youth do not have thousands of programs to better themselves? Is it that you're not seeing help wanted, workers wanted, or employment opportunities in the gazettes? And the answer is no, you're seeing all of this. So the reality is that you have good parents or that are working, and you have children still come breaking the window, coming out in the night to go with their friends to commit crime. So then what really is crime? Crime cannot be that their parents not providing. Crime cannot be because that they're looking for new shoes. Back in my day, as a very young child working in my parents' business, you would see summer, we all work after school. On weekends, we all work in the grocery. And I will tell you this, in the past 10 years in my gas stations and so, normally you had to put up signs that we have no summer jobs available. And now you're not seeing young people coming just to look for that. So the reality is that we continue to spend billions of dollars every year, whether it be through Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social Development, for these sort of initiatives. And Ministry of Security certainly gets a big chunk of it, sometime between $6 to $10 billion every year. And why are we not feeling safe? Is it that people just not doing their job? Is it that Trinidad is so poor and people don't have these opportunities? And we cannot narrow and say, well, okay, people from a particular hotspot, this is what they embedded, because that is totally false. While you have quite a number of people in these different hotspots, you have very good people that will come out and try and make an honest dollar. There are a lot of people in this country that works for minimum wage and they still get by. There are a lot of people unemployed and still will go and try to do little odds and ends to survive. So why are these youths facing a crime? It has to be a vice, a
Well,
way.
Mr. Chattergoon, let me interject there for a moment. It seems as though you're absolutely adamant that opportunities do exist. And whilst I respect your opinion, maybe we should also consider the angle that here in Trinidad, opportunity exists only for those whom we want it to exist for. I mean, it's often suggested that here in TNT, considering how small of an island we are, in order for us to get something that we need or get something done, it's not a matter of who you know, but who knows you.
I'm sorry, Ketan, you're breaking up pretty bad.
I was saying that whilst I will accept the point that you've made, opportunity in Trinidad and Tobago, and I hope we can consider this as well, is only available for those whom we want it to be available for.
Well, You might be absolutely right, because if I'm not looking for the opportunity, therefore I cannot find it. And if I'm looking for the opportunity to go in a particular direction, then that is the path that I may take. Understand that when we idolize these thugs or the criminal elements, then this is the direction that we will take. Because if we, and not only Trinidad, in Caribbean, some other parts of the world have the same problem. So we cannot be doing the same thing, Keaton, every year, every day, and expecting the same results. The reality is that we need change. We ask for consultation. We placard the road. And what has changed? This is not last year. This is not 10 years ago. This is not 15 years ago. When you look at the crime statistics, it's alarming that we have sometimes 15,000 crimes every year, which is almost 1 point something every hour. The Northern Division has the highest crime for the past 10, 15 years, and yet we spend a lot of money in these areas. But then what is the real reason? I am very adamant in saying that crime is because I can do a crime and get away with it.
All right, let's actually hold on that one point for a moment. We're going to come back to that. I want to just actually go back to something you said earlier, and that is with respect to we need change. Precisely, where is this change going to come from? We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different results. By that argument, I can also suggest that the thousands of programs that are available from be it the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service is the same thing every year. And even the ministers lament the results of it. Yes, people receive training, but it doesn't equate to opportunity. So if that is the case, even with the Ministry of National Security, it's received a large chunk of the budget, you never see anything different being done. So where does the responsibility lie for such change that you're alluding to?
So I will be very biased and start off saying this. If we are trained in a particular industry for the past 20, 30 years, and we are accustomed doing the same thing, and these people head the whatever programs you have, then you really can't expect change. We have to be very open-minded and possibly ask for new, young, different thinking people for doing the same thing. Because if we have failed to provide or fail to enact, then we need to change the game. So there are thousands of programs, and the reality is that I was only aware of this in the past couple of years. So perhaps we need to market it, right? And then there's a certain air of students or qualified people that after I'm qualified, I expect to get some sort of enormous salary and enormous benefit, almost as though if I can get rich quick. But if you look at any successful business persons or any successful person, they didn't start off like that. They start off of very humble beginnings. They make a lot of sacrifice along the way and a lot of effort to get where they are. But for some reason is that the glamour of the youths of this country feel that from the time I'm qualified, I could go out and demand certain things without any experience. So coming back to all of this, Ketan, if we do not enact a difference, right? For example, in the TTPS, we have seen major changes in this country when there were non-locals or non-traditional TTPS officers, right? And why is that? Is it that because we do not know everything and now we are open for suggestions? Or is it that if I'm working in a TTPS from a constable come right up, I know everything? One has to understand that the most unqualified person, let me repeat what I'm going to say, the most unqualified person has a part or a stakeholder into every relationship that you can get some benefit of in a conversation. Whereas the absolute most qualified, while they would have the academia and the certificates and they could do all of this, they could still pull from everybody in this consultation.
Let me ask you about these thousands of programs. I can't name five at the top of my head if I have to be very honest with you, but are these programs really working? I know you mentioned that they have to be marketed better, but in terms of these thousands of programs that are available and if youth actually participate in it, I think most recently Shamfa Kujo, the Honorable Minister of Sport, was saying that how it's not equaling to entrepreneurial development here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's not even equaling to internships. Is it that even though these programs are available and opportunities available, we actually are not seeing a climate which is facilitating jobs? We're not seeing a climate which is facilitating the opportunity for young people to actually practice what they may have learned or the skills that they may have actually, learned during these programs.
And Ketan, you might be absolutely right. And there's a facade in this country that I have to go to school and I have to qualify to be the top of my class to be successful. Here's the reality of it. And this is a part of conversations I try to have with anybody, any children or so that I speak with. Most of the leaders or the most successful people in Trinidad and probably the world were not at the top of their class. So if you see that you're mid-average in your class, there is still hope. And hope is important because you don't want that, okay, well, I didn't do well in school, well, then I can only go towards the life of crime, right? I myself was a bit average student. And, while I may not be very successful, but I can still feed my family and I still have a place in society. When you look at the very humble beginnings, the extra foods, night balls, the Polaris, the bag one sings, they all had humble beginnings, but through effort, sacrifice, they were able to succeed. So to all the children and the parents, you need to encourage this, because it's not that your child is not at the top of the class, mean that he will not survive or she will not survive. We need all hands on deck so that we could push forward, because it's very demotivating for any child to know, well, okay, I didn't do well in this exam or I didn't do well in this program. My life is at an end and this is the only way of life. This is not so. In fact, I know some people in the fashion industry, in the football federation that didn't do well at all in CXC, and now they are the absolute top in their game in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that this is where we need to be in terms of getting the people who think that crime is the only opportunity for them, right? And coming back to the statement that I've made in terms of ICE, in terms of the police and acting their job. We do not drive over 100 kilometers anymore because we can get catch. We do not take a social drink and attempt to drive again because we could get catch. So with that sort of 100% policing, can't we do this for the gang elements and the absolute criminal elements? Because you always read on the papers, they were well known to TTPS. You see statistics coming out that they have X amount of gangs and they know them. So why Trinidad and Tobago is living in fear, right? To me, it's a little bit simpler than we think. If we run a program of zero tolerance and probably look closer at these small minority in Trinidad and Tobago that have the majority living in fear, I think we could do it.
So is it a matter of laziness then, or a lack of political will? Because as much as we focused on youth and vice this morning, we've also suggested that there has been no significant change. And I would argue that this is successive governments or successive leadership. And I use the same leadership as well because it could be through the Trans-Tobago Police Service, it could be through any of these programs for national development. So is it that we just simply are too lazy to try and enact change or get anything meaningful done? I don't think it's very difficult. I speak to leaders almost every day on this platform. Everybody seems to have a suggestion, but it seems as though everywhere else people are absolutely clueless and are not entirely sure what to do, and perhaps that is why we're living in fear.
Well, there is a saying, yeah, that only those in the kitcheners feel the heat. So it's very easy for somebody who have never done anything to criticize. And you have to understand that. And once you get into the chair, you understand how much moving parts there are. But while I agree with you in terms of that we not achieving what we need to do, perhaps we need different ideas. Perhaps we need to market it for what it is. Because we still do things, I would say our laws are 100 years old, our philosophies are hundreds years old. When the digital transformation of the nation, everything is within a couple of seconds. And you would know that when there is a roadblock, within seconds, the whole country know, hey, they're at this point. So why haven't we had stop and search programs in a greater value? We know that there are indiscriminate parking and whatever have you, but there are less bike officers to run them down. We know that crime takes place at a particular days and certain time, but yet you're not seeing the force that needs to see for deterrent. We know populations are increasing, but yet you don't have the shift of human resource as well as other resource in the TTPS. So this is common knowledge. We know all of this, but why is it not being addressed? And it probably if I know everything, well, then there's nothing to learn. Probably that is where is it? I really can't say. What I'm willing to say at this point, Ketan, is if my country calls on me to serve, I am not a keyboard champ to write a wholesale stuff on social media. I will come to serve in whatever capacity that I think that I can. I may not be criminally qualified in terms of legal or have any sort of security training, but I am good at management. And if that is the case, I am willing to serve. And I'm calling on everyone. It's about time that we put political caps one side and put Trinidad and Tobago in the forefront, because this is not about us. This is not about government, opposition, religious groups, or anything. This is about what the Trinidad and Tobago we're going to leave for our great grandchildren and generations to come. Because I will tell you, at some point in time, my grandfather, and so the first and foremost thing was to educate the children. And my father was, let us make a better life. But nobody ever thought about the social issues that we are living in. Imagine you're well educated, you cannot get a job, or you have a job and you're doing well and you can't enjoy it. This is where we are. And when you think about next 20, 30 years, that all of the children here, most of them is going to be killed out through gang violence and whatever have you. Who are the leaders? Where are the work ethics? Well, what is going to happen? So this is way beyond you and I, Ketan, to be quite honest. We need all hands on deck. We need to do something different if we to enact change. We need to understand where we are as a society and where we need to be. So,
Well, Mr. Chattergoon, my final question to you, and thank you very much for joining me this morning. As an individual who arguably has been successful, I mean, most recently, you opened a state-of-the-art gas station, which was all over the newspapers, actually. In that particular field, not in terms of all this motivation that you're speaking about and enacting change, to the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, what would you say to them to say, listen, Trinidad and Tobago is the right place for you. Stay in Trinidad and Tobago, work with Trinidad and Tobago, work for Trinidad and Tobago, rather than them seeking a life elsewhere outside of TNT?
Well, you're touching on a very salient point. And the reality is that when something don't work well, we tend to criticize what we have. All over the entire world, from the time they hear our accent, hey, where you're from? Oh, Trinidad, oh, it's a lovely place. But yet we treat Trinidad and Tobago as a disposable one. There's no savior that come into Trinidad and Tobago. This is our place. This is our home. This is our country. And we all have to do whatever we can to take pride in that. So when you look at people that litter in, how can you take pride? When you look at how we treat each other, how can you take pride when we are dog and cat and you have all this criminal elements going around? So in terms of investments, and I keep saying this, we as a nation have to invest in our own culture, in our own nation, in our own security, in our own everything before we think we can attract outsiders. We have to be our savior. COVID have taught us that we need the SMEs. While you have big conglomerates who talking about doom and gloom, and yet they continue to expand. Is it that for these small moms and pops the type business not to try a thing? And you can try and you will succeed once you see that you have your fundamentals in terms of effort, in terms of dedication, in terms of compassion for whatever type of entrepreneurship skill, whether it be trade, whether it be business. I say go for it, try hard. It's a long, hard journey, but you will get there once you're dedicated to it.
Mr. Chattergoon, thank you very much for joining me on AM Prime this morning. Very intriguing discussion indeed, and for your time. And as you said, you will continue to volunteer your time. It's certainly something which you're passionate about. I wish you the best, sir.
Thank you so much, Ketan. All the best.
Keep well.